Hi everyone, I'm Joe Parker, and today we're going to highlight how to switch identity providers, or IDPs. In this video, I'm going to cover the different ways we can change IDPs within the Management Console. Remember that since the March 2020 monthly release, all new SaaS tenants, including ClickSense Enterprise tenants, use ClickAccount as the default authentication method. When switching IDPs, users who were part of the tenant using the original IDP can be mapped to their corresponding user identity in the new IDP, as long as the email addresses match. I'll now demonstrate how to change from ClickAccount to a third-party IDP, and then I'll also demonstrate how to change between two different third-party IDPs. I'll also briefly describe how to modify or delete an IDP. The first step is to log into the tenant using a previously invited user who has also been promoted to tenant admin. Now, navigate to the Management Console. Note that in our user list, we have a user who's been identified as Kramer Click when invited via ClickAccount. Note also the user ID, which will stay with the user no matter what IDP they're using, the IDP subject, which in this case identifies that we're using a ClickAccount, and the user's email address. To highlight that apps will follow users when the IDP changes, let's create an app. In order to do that, the user must be assigned a professional license. So let's make sure Kramer has one. As you can see, there is still no Create button. The user must re-log in to see the button after being converted to Professional. Once the user is set to Professional, that designation will carry forward with the user as we switch identity providers. We create an app, and for the purposes of the demo, we'll indicate it was created under ClickAccount so that we can see that it will transfer as we switch IDPs. Now we'll create an Okta IDP configuration. What we want to demonstrate here is that users will be recognized between IDPs as long as they have the same email address to identify them in both IDPs. Notice that when you're starting from ClickAccount and you navigate to the Identity Provider tab, you're warned that you don't have any identity providers created. We'll go through the steps to create an interactive IDP, choosing Okta as our provider. When we click Create, oops, we forgot to whitelist the tenant. This is a common mistake that is now easily corrected and will not impact our ability to use this IDP configuration. Once fixed, we can reload the browser window to continue the creation. Now we're asked to sign in to the IDP. We see that there's an Okta login prompt instead of the click prompt. The user must now log in with their Okta credentials. Once logged in, it's important to check the claims, especially the email verified claim. This must be set to true for the identity mapping between IDPs to be successful. Once the user and claims are validated, you're asked if you want the user to be promoted to tenant admin. In this case, the user already was a tenant admin, and this was automatically recognized. You can activate the IDP now if you choose, but first let's look at how the IDP appears in the Management Console. When we return to the Identity Provider tab in the Management Console, you can see that the Okta IDP is configured, but not activated. It is easily activated once configured by going to the menu and selecting Activate. You're prompted to confirm that you want to activate the IDP. When we log into the hub, you can see that the app we created with our ClickAccount identity has followed the user now that we're using Okta. Looking at the user listing, we see that the user ID has remained the same and followed the user, as has the email address. However, the user's name and IDP subject now reflect the values for the new IDP. Each IDP has an Actions menu under the three dots. We used this before to activate the IDP. There is also the option to edit the IDP credentials and claims mappings. Now we can demonstrate changing to a different third-party IDP, for example, Okta to Auth0. First, we create the Auth0 configuration. We'll add a realm value of Kramer Auth to differentiate it from the ClickAccount configuration, which is also through Auth0. We repeat the configuration steps that we performed before when we set up Okta. However, this time Qlik knows that you already have an interactive IDP, so it prompts you to confirm that you want to create another. If you want to create the configuration but not activate it, click Close. Back in our Actions menu, another option is the ability to delete the IDP configuration. Be aware that if there's only one configuration available and you delete it, the tenant is returned to using Qlik Account for authentication. You can also revalidate the IDP or deactivate it, which is what we'll do here so that we can then activate Auth0. Now, when we go to log into the tenant, our Auth0 login page is shown. Like before, not only does the app follow the user, but when we check the user information in the management console, the ID and email are the same. The username and IDP subject, however, reflects the information from the new IDP. This new functionality will simplify IDP management considerably for users. Thanks for watching.